So our first step is going to be when we look at the binomial 2vm squared minus 14vm is we're going to look for a greatest common factor. So looking for a GCF first. And when we look for the GCF between our constants here of 2 and 14, the GCF is going to be 2. Between the, looking at the variables then, we have a v and a v, so that v is going to have to come to the GCF. And then we have an m squared and m. And so if we have an m squared and m, that means that we have one m that is in common that is going to become part of our GCF. So remember, our GCF goes on the outside of our parentheses, and then we take our GCF and divide all terms by the GCF. And so now we have 2 problems to do. And so our first one here, the 2's will cancel out, the v's will cancel out, and then m squared divided by m will be m to the first. Looking at the second problem here, we have negative 14 divided by 2 will be negative 7. V divided by v is going to cancel out to 1. M divided by m will cancel out to 1. And there is our answer. Remember to make sure that that greatest common factor is always on the outside, because our goal is that if we use the distributive property and multiplied, we would end up with our original problem. All right, if we go over and look at number 2, number 2 is a trinomial. We're going to do a very similar process. We're going to look at the constants and then each one of the variables. So if I look between 5, 25, and 250, the greatest common factor there is going to be a 5. And so I'll be dividing a 5 out of each term. If I then look at the variables, I have a b to the second, a b, but there's no b here. So b cannot be included in our greatest common factor. So then looking at the k's, we have a k squared, and a k squared. So k squared can be included in our GCF. So I will divide each term by 5k squared, and I'll put that greatest common factor outside of parentheses. And now I have 1, 2, 3 problems to do. So looking at the first one, 5 divided by 5 is 1. The b squared will end up as part of my answer, and then k squareds will cancel out. 25 divided by 5 is 5. The b will be part of my answer. The k squares will cancel out. Negative 250 divided by 5 will be negative 10. The k squares will cancel out. And here's our answer. Notice that the GCF is out there first. If we distributed and multiplied, we would end up with our original problem. All right, let's look at one last one here. And so we have 45x squared plus 180x plus 100. And so now looking at this, I have to determine what my GCF is. I know that I cannot include an x because this has an x squared, this has an x, this does not have a variable. So the x will not be part of our GCF, but I have to look at the constants also. If I look here at 45, I know that 45 is only 1 and 45 and 5 and 9. So if I look at the other factors here, I can see that both 180 and 100 end in 5, and so therefore 5 will be a common factor. If I look at 9, 180 will be divisible by 9, but 100 is not divisible by 9, so I know that that is not a choice. And so my GCF is going to be 5. And we've talked before about how a GCF can be a constant, can be a variable, or a combination of a constant and a variable. So this one just is the constant 5. And now I'm going to do 1, 2, 3 problems. And so 45 divided by 5 is going to be 9x squared. 180 divided by 5 is going to give me 36x. And 100 divided by 5 is 20.